Story 1. AITAH for leaving in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner because of pumpkin pie? My 32F mother, 60F, hosts Thanksgiving dinner at her house every year. It's a small event with my parents, me, my brother's family, and my Sills family attending. We avoid family quarrels by implementing a strict no politics rule and trying our best to be civil. I should probably mention that we are not a particularly close-knit family. We rarely see each other beyond these events since my brother lives in South Africa and I travel a lot due to my work. Thanksgiving is important to my mom since it's one of the rare times we're all together. Anyway, the main problem I have with my mother is her constant critique of me. She has a habit of making passive-aggressive comments about my life choices, from my career to my lack of children to the way I dress. I've addressed this with her multiple times, but she doesn't really seem aware of it. My father claims it is just her way of fussing and expressing that she cares. It does hurt, though, because my brother is never criticized in the same manner. I cannot entirely fault her for her criticism, since I did majorly mess up my life a few months ago, depression, and it has affected her opinion of me negatively. It does not excuse the way I acted, but I just wanted to explain why I left. By the time we finished dinner, I was a bit prickly because of some of her commentary. I made a cake for dessert. I was explicitly put in charge of it and no one specified what exactly I should make, so I opted for maple cheesecake. I did my best and I think it looked okay. Mom normally makes pumpkin pie, but I really hate pumpkins. They make me gag. So I thought perhaps we could try something new. As I was bringing out the cheesecake, my mom eyed it somewhat warily and announced that she'd decided to make the usual pie as well. This caught me off guard. I asked why she didn't tell me beforehand, and she said something like, "Well, we figured you'd do your own thing, so I thought it was best to have a backup." She went on to cut the pie and serve it to everyone, instructing me to leave the cheesecake in the kitchen. When someone asked to try my dessert, she said, "Let's not mix too many flavors at once," which just felt passive-aggressive. I know it's immature for an adult to get this upset over a triviality, but I just politely refused as she was handing me a slice of pie, retrieved my coat and left. People were calling after me, I think, but by that point I was crying for some reason, and it would have been too humiliating to have an emotional outburst in front of everyone for no real reason. My mom just texted me saying that it was incredibly rude and immature of me to leave like that, especially on Thanksgiving. My brother also sent me a message saying I'm acting irrationally. I feel horrible for leaving so abruptly, especially because my parents are getting older and we are already not close. Something about my mother seems to turn me into a neurotic teenager, and I hate it. Added comments. Commenter. I know this is painful to accept, but it doesn't sound like your family likes you. OP. I wish they could pretend to, at least during the holidays. Judgment is NTA. Update, December 13th, 2024. Hello. Since I always wonder what happened to the people who post on here, I thought I'd give a brief update. When I wrote that post, I was mentally in a pretty dark place. I think I needed someone, even if it was a stranger on the internet, to validate my feelings and listen. And commenters on here did listen and took the time to write advice that made me think. So thank you. Most of you were right. My post was not really about pumpkin pie or cheesecake. The underlying tension between me and my mother has always expressed itself through fights over trivialities and long silences. Many of you have asked me why I, as a 30-year-old woman, still go to these events. I've asked myself the same question and realized that there is no reason for me to be there. My brother and I do not get along, we never have, and my mother has brought this onto herself. I will be spending Christmas elsewhere. However, I feel like my post might have portrayed my mother in an unfair light. I know it does not matter since you are here to judge a conflict and not a person, but some of the comments seem to assume my mum to be a nasty and mean bully. She is not. She can be very kind and very generous, and has done a lot of good for people through her work. She is also terrible at expressing emotion, frustrated by retirement, and herself had a very difficult childhood. Our relationship has not always been this bad, and I too have been cruel to her in the past. In regards to the actual quarrel, I have sent only a short response to my brother since Thanksgiving, ignoring Mum's texts. She called yesterday and seems to be hell-bent on buying me new shoes. She rarely apologizes. I am not strong enough to keep hoping she changes. I will address the topic of my childhood with my therapist. Happy holidays, everyone. Story 2. AITAH. For allowing my son to disinvite his stepmother from his bar mitzvah? My ex and I have been divorced for 7 years. We have 3 children. Amy, 17, Tom, 16, and Ben, 14. Our divorce was amicable, and we co-parent well for the most part. I am a non-observant Jew, and my ex is a non-practicing Catholic. We decided to teach our children to be decent people and allow them to decide what faith, if any, they wanted when we're old enough. My ex remarried 2 years ago, and they have a 6-month-old daughter. She is a devout Christian, non-denominational. Since she came into their lives, she has actively tried to convert them. I wouldn't have an issue if she was just inviting them to church, but she is constantly telling them that if they do not accept Christ as their Savior, they will go to hell, as will me and my family. After this, my children refused to see their dad unless it was outside of his home without her. Their dad finally put his foot down and put an end to it. Now, on to the problem. My parents went to Poland a few months ago to visit family and took my children with them. While there, my dad took them to Auschwitz, and Ben was very moved. When he came home, he started attending temple with my father and has been working with his rabbi to prepare for his bar mitzvah. He is having a small party afterwards at my parents' house. When his stepmother heard this, she really ramped up the crazy. She waited until my ex was not home and invited a bunch of people from her church over, and they ambushed Ben. They tried to lay hands on him to save him from the fires. My daughter physically intervened, called an Uber, and took her brothers home. My ex stopped by a couple of hours later and apologized profusely for what had happened. My son accepted his apology, but stated that his stepmother was no longer welcome at his bar mitzvah or the party afterwards. My ex got very upset by this and stated that this was being disrespectful and he could not go somewhere where his wife was not welcome. My son said, "Well, I guess you're not invited either then." He then locked himself in his room. My ex, his parents, and his wife have all been texting and calling berating me. When my parents found out what had happened, they stated that his wife was not welcome in their home, but they told my son that he should still allow his father to come. My ex is adamant that he will not come without his wife, and my son is adamant that his wife is not invited. I refuse to intervene on his wife's behalf, and my ex says I am an asshole. Am I? Just a few things for clarification. I'm trying to respond to all comments, but there's getting to be too many, so thank you everyone for your input. I plan on showing this to my ex. No, she wasn't like this when he married her. She went to church, but it wasn't until they got married that she became more involved. I was actually surprised that she was with him, knowing that he was not religious but figured opposites attract. In the beginning, she was great with our kids. They liked her and spent a lot of time with them. Her pushing my kids towards Christianity was little things like insisting they bow their heads for grace at mealtimes, buying them books by religious authors, not allowing what she deemed inappropriate movies, Harry Potter, anything with profanity, hanging up religious pictures and signs with Bible verses in the house, etc. Once she started with the "you're going to, hell if you don't" nonsense, I got their dad involved and it ended, at least for a while. Their dad is very supportive of our son's embracing Judaism. He is paying for private Hebrew lessons and has offered to send him to Israel the summer after high school, providing it is safe to go. My ex and I met our freshman year of college. We were together a few years before getting married and only got married because our first was on the way, and both of our sets of parents were very insistent that we do so. My parents, especially, were very big on the legal aspect of it for my protection. We separated after almost 20 years of being together because we had started to become unhappy together, and, despite counseling, could not resolve some of our differences. There was no infidelity or anything like that. We only got divorced when he met his current wife so that they could marry. We had no formal custody agreement in place. My parents have me seeing a lawyer next week to put some parameters into place and protect everyone involved. He promised that the kids don't have to be around his wife until they are ready to be. I asked then, why is it a big deal that he doesn't want her at the ceremony and party? His responses is that he wants the invitation extended, but he will make sure that she won't go. He says it's disrespectful and a snub to not invite her. I told him that that sounded like a big bunch of BS and that she was not going to be no matter what. Edited for punctuation and spelling. Update. Sunday, my ex asked if I would be willing to come over and discuss what happened. He said he felt there were some misunderstandings that needed to be resolved. I went, along with my daughter and oldest son. They asked to go. Anyway, when I got there was another couple there who I was introduced to as her pastor and his wife. I was immediately on guard. Stepmother stated that all she and her church group had wanted to do was pray for my children. She stated that she felt that raising them with no religion had done them a great disservice, and that I didn't understand all of the consequences of doing this. She stated that since she had had her daughter, she realized how horrible it would be to be separated in heaven from the people she loved more than anything in the world. I said I did not believe that would happen, as I believed if there was any type of afterlife, one of the perks would be that you would be reunited with people that you loved. She then stated that it would have to be this way as my children had not accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Then she started to cry. I gently suggested to her that she was still postpartum, and that it was possible that her hormones and emotions were heightened, and that she was not seeing things clearly. That was obviously the wrong thing to say, because then she and my ex both became angry with me and told me that I was trying to make her out to be a crazy person. Her pastor quoted a few Bible verses and attempted to expand on what she had said. The whole time my ex just sat there silently. I finally asked him what he thought about all of this, and he said that his wife meant well and that she was only concerned with our kids' souls. I asked him when he had become so religious as during our 20 years together, he had not so much stepped inside of a church outside of a few weddings we'd attended. He stated that their having their daughter had made him realize how important choosing a faith was. I told him that our son had chosen. It just happened to be Judaism instead of Christianity. I also said it was my understanding that it was the same God for both. The pastor then again chimed in stating that Jesus was the true Messiah and that Jews would be punished both in this life and the afterlife for denying that. At that point, my daughter stood up and stated that this whole discussion was making her sick. My older son said that he was tired of dealing with all of his stepmother's bullshit, and he would never step foot into their home again. He said over the years, he had ignored a lot as both myself and his dad had encouraged him to be tolerant of people's beliefs. But as nobody was being tolerant of his or his siblings' beliefs, he was done dealing with their hypocrisy. He told his dad that he had no desire to either talk or see him or his wife for the foreseeable future. We then left. Today I met with the family lawyer that my parents had found for me. He said that tomorrow we are going to go to the courthouse for a temporary restraining order and to ask for an emergency custody order. He says we'll get both. He also had me go to the police department today and make a report with all 3 of my children about what happened last week. I am so sick that it has come to this. I never wanted my children to have to be put in the middle of battling families. I am aware, as so many of you pointed out, that I underreacted. To be honest, this is the first time in my life I have really ever dealt with anything like this. I grew up in an incredibly diverse community, where everyone was tolerant of everyone else. And when my ex and I were married, we returned and lived in that community, as we felt it was a fantastic place to raise children. So that's that. I want to thank everyone for all of their support, and for those who pointed out that I was being naive for being kind about it. I'm sorry I could not respond to everyone personally, including all of the private messages I was sent. There were just so many. Never expected this to blow up so hard. AITAH has no consensus bot. OOP received the majority of NTAs. Relevant. Comment? OOP's son might have been subjected to religious abuse or harassment. OOP should make sure her son's boundaries are respected. OOP. Thank you. I feel partially at fault because in the past I told them to just ignore it when she made comments or to decline politely when she invited them to church. I should have been a lot more forceful, but tried to be respectful of her faith. I never expected her to go this far. Commenter 1, NTA, and it's sad your ex is backing his nut job of a wife. Hope he understands this is going to ruin his chances of actually having decent relationships with his kids. OOP. He's always been a live-in, let-live kind of guy. I think he's also afraid she will take their child and leave if he doesn't support her in this. None of my children are talking to him at the moment. I feel bad for him, but this is something that he has to fix himself. Commenter 2. You need to get your lawyer involved to legally put a stop to his psychotic stepmom. OOP. Right now, none of our children are talking to him and they refuse to go back to his house. I told him that they are of the age that they can make their decisions, and I will not force them to do anything they don't want. They have all blocked her and her family. I really don't want to go to court as I don't have the money, especially with the oldest going to college in the fall, but I support them 100% on staying away from her. Commenter 3. What is wrong with your ex-husband? I too am a devout Christian and have nothing but love for my Jewish brothers and sisters. It is up to a man to clarify with his current wife what is acceptable with her interactions with your and his children. He needs to stand up like a man. OOP. I agree completely, and I really don't understand it because when we were together, his parents were pressuring us to have all of our kids baptized, and he stood up to them. OOP explains a bit more about her daughter who physical intervened the meeting with the stepmom and her church friends. OOP. No, my daughter intervened before they touched him. She said she had a feeling something was going to happen because they came into the family room where all three were watching TV and got into a circle holding hands and were praying out loud about all three of them. She said they were all frozen, staring at these people in a kind of WTF way. But then when they let go of each other and started heading towards them, she grabbed her brother and pulled him out the front door. My ex has sworn that he will ensure that the kids are never left alone with her again. As of right now, none of them agreed to go anywhere with him either. But my parents are now insisting that I go speak with an attorney to get a formal custody agreement drawn up after this incident. I see now that I should have done this years ago, but our divorce was so amicable, and until she came into the picture, everything was fine with our co-parenting. We even took vacations together with the kids. The only thing I can think of is that now he's so afraid of her leaving him and taking their daughter that he's throwing our kids under the bus to appease her, which is not okay. Update, December 11th, 2024, 3.5 months later. AITAH for not allowing my kids to see their grandparents for Christmas break. Hello, everyone. I posted on here a couple of months ago after my ex's wife staged a religious intervention when my son decided he wanted to embrace Judaism and be bar mitzvahed. Post is still under my profile if anyone wants specifics. My ex and I share 3 children, Amy, 18, Tom, 16, and Ben, 15. The people responding to that first post helped me to see that I was underreacting, and I met with a lawyer for a custody order as we had just done our own thing. I now have full decision-making for our children's religious upbringing and full custody. Ex has visitation every other weekend. I have been incredibly flexible and let him take them pretty much whenever he or the kids want. On his weekend, I stay with my parents and he stays in the house. Only rule I made was the stepmother is not around them at all. Ever. My kids are very close with their paternal grandparents. GPs know that stepmother is not to be around them, but twice, when I picked them up, she was there. Excuse was that she had just popped in quickly to drop off the baby. I asked them to let me know when they were sitting and we would plan a different day. But they said that it was a last-minute thing. Okay, fine. They want them to come for a 5-day visit over Christmas break, not 24/25ths, and I cannot trust that this woman will not come over. Ben still gets incredibly anxious with her. Yes, he is in therapy. My in-laws refuse to tell her that she cannot come over because they say they do not want to be put in the middle and that it's making them choose between their grands. I reached out to my ex, who said that since she isn't coming over for long, he's not stopping it. He also said that there is nothing in the order that she can't be around, and as his wife and mom of their sibling, there's no reason that she should have to tiptoe around. He was incredibly dismissive, and I went nuclear on him. I told him that I had been letting him see them whenever, despite only having 2 weekends a month, that he was married to a sociopathic zealot, and that if she continued to come around, I would go back to court and ask for supervised visits and a restraining order against her. He hung up. Then I asked the kids what they wanted. Come to find out, the woman has been coming around a lot. Amy said their grandparents asked them not to say anything to not upset me. I told my daughter that as an adult she can go, but that her brothers would not be. Ben's look of relief broke my heart. Amy said, and she felt weird when Step showed up. Tom said his W/Ben. Called XMIL, told her that the children not be coming back until they chose to. I said they were welcome to come over to see them. I said they were so wrong to ask the kids to keep secrets. They called my ex, who berated me for punishing his parents. Stepmom sent me a text saying I was unfair. I think I'm right, but everyone else thinks I'm TA. Am I? Verdict: not the asshole. Relevant. Comment. Commenter 1. NTA. Your children are old enough to set their own boundaries. If they don't want to go to GPs and/or interact with stepmom, they shouldn't be forced to. This is a critical teaching moment about boundaries and respect. Protect your children as best as you can, including legally if ex and stepmom insist on stomping all over the boundaries set. GPs are also boundary stompers and can't be trusted. OP, thank you. I appreciate your input. I get that my former in-laws love my kids as well as their new grandchild and don't want to be caught in the middle. But for the life of me, after what happened, I don't understand how they can't accept that. I don't want my children around her. It's the only thing I've asked. And they're acting like I'm banning them completely, which I'm not. They can come visit them at our home at any time. We live less than 15 minutes from them. Commenter 2. NTA. They have proven that they can't be trusted to protect your minor children, and as their custodial parent, you're doing what you have to do to keep them safe. Period. This isn't a punishment, it's consequences, and people who are asking to spend time with children should absolutely know the difference. Quite frankly, anyone who asks a child to keep a secret from their parents, especially a secret that involves explicitly going against the boundaries set forth by the parent, is someone who shouldn't be spending time alone with that child. OOP. Their defense was that they did not ask them to keep it a secret or lie only to not mention it. Sigh. I told him that they can see them at any time. We live less than 15 minutes away from them, so it's not like I'm cutting all access to them. I really don't think they understand how much her attempting to save them affected them. Commenter 3. Info. Are you 100% sure that the kids love their paternal grandparents and want to see them? OP. Yes, but not at their house anymore. Although they still want a relationship with them, they have noticeably pulled away since this whole incident as they do not feel supported by them. Ben had started making excuses and not going after the first time SM showed up, and his grandparents made excuses for her and downplayed his discomfort. But now my in-laws are digging in their heels and saying my compromise of them coming over to see the kids whenever they would like is unreasonable. She even made the mistake of calling my mother to try and intervene, and my mother, who is one of the kindest, most forgiving people you will ever meet, told her that if it was up to her and my dad, who has had beef with them since they last minute didn't show up to Ben's bar mitzvah with no explanation, they wouldn't be seeing the children at all until they were able to admit that they were wrong and apologize to all 3 children. My older son's birthday is coming up, and my daughter called them yesterday to invite them to the family dinner we are having for him. They said they are too uncomfortable to do so since my ex won't come without his wife, but would be happy to have a second party at their house, which she and my son both refused. They just continue to keep hammering nails into that coffin. Story 3. AITAH for refusing to give my half-sister any of our grandmother's jewelry after they excluded me for years? For context, I, 24F, am the product of an affair. My father was married when I was born, and his marriage fell apart because of it. My dad eventually divorced his now ex-wife, and his 3 kids, my half-siblings, 32F, 30M, 28M, have always resented me for it. I understand. What happened between our parents was messy and destroyed their happy family, but I was just a baby, and they've punished me for it my whole life. Growing up, they excluded me from everything. They didn't want me around, made cruel comments when I was, and acted like I didn't exist unless they were making me feel unwelcome. The worst part was when my mom passed away when I was 19. While I was mourning my mother's death, they openly celebrated. I found out they made jokes about how the trash took itself out and threw a party less than a month after the funeral to celebrate it. That broke me, and I've been no contact with them for years over it. Our shared grandmother wasn't much better. She wasn't outright cruel to me, but she clearly favored my half-siblings. They spent vacations and summers with her while she barely acknowledged me. She also made it known on more than one occasion that she wanted her jewelry to go to my oldest half-sister, 32F, when she passed away as the oldest female grandchild in the family, since she never had any daughters of her own. It was well established to everyone that knew her that this was her intention. However, she didn't leave a notarized will, so legally her estate went to my dad as her only child. To my shock, my dad gave the entire jewelry collection to me. He said he regretted how I'd been treated by the family and wanted me to have something meaningful. It was the first time he had ever done something to truly acknowledge me, and I was floored. Now my half-siblings are furious, especially my oldest half-sister. She's demanding I give her some of the jewelry, claiming that since she was closer to our grandmother, and she had always intended for her sister to have it, it's unfair that I kept it all. She even said I wasn't really part of the family, and has been calling me selfish and accusing me of stealing what was rightfully hers. I refused. I told her that after years of being treated like garbage, I'm not giving up the one thing my dad has ever done to acknowledge me. She accused me of being bitter and petty, saying I'm using this to punish them for things that happened years ago. I'll admit, part of me feels like I'm finally getting some compensation for their horrible treatment of me. But the other part of me wonders if I'm being petty or cruel by keeping it all when the others were so much closer to her. So AITAH? Edited to add due to some people making assumptions about my mother. She did not know my father was married originally. They married after my father's divorce because at the time my mother could not support the two of us by herself, and being an unmarried pregnant woman was a major cultural taboo for her. My father spent a majority of his time home, when he actually bothered to come at all, trying to make it up to his children, or my half-siblings, when it was his time with custody. As far as I am aware, my mother never treated them poorly. They tended to ignore her, and she did the same when they were around our house. Update December 10th, 2024. First, I want to thank everyone for the responses, advice, and support. I never expected this post to gain so much attention, and it's been overwhelming, but also incredibly validating to know that so many of you understand where I'm coming from. After reading through the comments and reflecting on everything, I decided to stand firm in my decision to keep the jewelry. This is the first meaningful gesture my dad has ever made towards me, and I'm not going to give it up, especially to people who have done nothing but make me feel like an outsider my entire life. For greater clarification, the jewelry also represents a greater apology to me. No one had ever apologized for the treatment I faced throughout my entire childhood, even when I chose to cut them off. Not for the constant name-calling, not for the actual slurs they would regularly call me, not for the unwanted comments of my weight and how I was a pig just like my mother, none of it. Before, this is the only apology I've ever received even tangentially relating to my childhood, and yes, I'm very aware of how bitter I sound here. That said, I didn't want to completely close the door on reconciliation, so I reached out to my dad to discuss everything. I asked him why he gave the jewelry to me and what he thought about the backlash from my half-siblings. He admitted that he regrets how he handled things during my childhood and feels that he prioritized his other kids at my expense. Giving me the jewelry was his way of trying to make amends, even if it's late. I also told him about how my half-siblings were treating me now and the things they had said about my mom in the past. He was upset and said he would speak to them about their current behavior, though that wasn't my intention, and I doubt it will make much of a difference. As for my half-siblings, the situation has only escalated. My oldest half-sister, 32F, sent a long message accusing me of being vindictive and selfish, still claiming that I'm taking the jewelry out of spite, which I suppose is partially true. She tried to guilt-trip me again by bringing up how close she was to our grandmother and how much she wanted these specific pieces to remember her by. I didn't respond, but I've saved the messages in case things get worse. Unexpectedly, my middle half-brother, 30M, reached out privately. He admitted he was wrong for how he treated me in the past and apologized. He said he doesn't care about the jewelry and just wants to move forward. I told him I appreciated his apology, but I need time to process everything before I can even consider having a relationship with him. I'm still no contact with my oldest half-sister and youngest half-brother. At this point, I don't see that changing. To those wondering about the jewelry itself, I've decided to have some of the pieces appraised and restored. I plan to wear a few of them on special occasions and keep the rest stored safely. They hold sentimental value to me now, not because of my grandmother, but because they represent a step toward my dad finally seeing me as part of the family, even if it's imperfect and overdue. That said, after speaking with my middle half-brother, I've come to understand most of my half-sister's anger and attacks come from a place of grief. As such, I plan to give her my grandmother's favorite pair of earrings. She wore them constantly, and while I doubt my sister will have any gratitude towards me, I'm sure she'll appreciate the gesture nonetheless. Thanks again for all the support. This whole situation has been messy, but I feel more confident in my decision now. If anything else significant happens, I'll update again. AITAH. The comments have made me realize that I've probably been giving my sister too much benefit of the doubt. While I do want to return the earrings to her, I think I'll offer to let her buy them back instead. Though for the people concerned that letting her take them may incite her to sue me for the rest, I'll see how soon I can speak to a lawyer for a consultation. Story 4. AITAH for shutting my sister out of my family's lives and declining her wedding invitation? 5 years ago, my niece Nikki and her friends ridiculed and harassed my son Mark. They speculated about his sexuality, called him slurs, and even used the N-word with a hard R, all for their entertainment. When Mark came home, he was crying, shaking, and yelling as he tried to tell me what happened. It was heartbreaking. I immediately approached my sister to address the issue. I explained Mark's side of the story and the state he was in, but she dismissed it, claiming her daughter and her friends would never act that way. She didn't even offer to talk to Nikki. This wasn't an isolated incident. A few months before, Nikki kicked Mark in the genitals in front of her friends as a joke. When I demanded an explanation and an apology, Nikki refused, started crying, and claimed it was unfair to hold her accountable, even as Mark was still in pain. Nikki also has a history of mean-spirited behavior, such as calling my younger son Corey, then 6 years old, the annoying child instead of his name. Corey has asked me why she does this and shared how much it upsets him. In the case of Mark, my sister doubled down, claiming that one of Nikki's friends, the one who used the N-word, couldn't possibly be racist because she's Mexican. Her exact words were, "I don't know what you want me to do about this." That was the final straw for me. I told her that if she wasn't willing to address the issue, it was in my family's best interest to distance ourselves. 3 days later, she called me, said she spoke to Nikki, and told me, "We're good on my end." No details, no resolution, just that. When I followed up via email asking what was discussed and what actions would be taken, she never responded. To this day, no apology has been offered, not from my sister Nikki or the other kids involved. I informed my extended family about the situation and my decision to keep my kids away from my sister's family. While some were supportive, others, including my mother, have tried to undermine this boundary. One time, my mom secretly took my kids to spend time with my sister's family without my permission. I only found out because my younger son mentioned it. I was furious and drove an hour to pick them up immediately. Fast forward to today. I've received criticism for maintaining this boundary. My sister is now getting married and invited us to the wedding, but I declined. My mother even asked if she could take my kids to the wedding, and I flatly said no. There has been no effort from my sister to apologize or reconcile. The only time she reached out after the incident was to add me to a group chat asking if we could take her to a birthday party in Chicago. No mention of the harm she caused. I'm standing firm in my decision to protect my kids, but I've been labeled as overly harsh and unforgiving. AITAH, some of OOP's comments. Commenter, blocking them will allow you to protect yourself from further manipulation or guilt trips. P. I blocked her and removed myself from chat groups 5 years ago. I only found out last week that she had asked my brother for my info so she could send me an invitation to her wedding. Commenter, you should apologize to your mom. I'm sorry you raised an asshole daughter who is well on her way to raise an asshole granddaughter. Was your sister the golden child growing up? OP. Let's see. I was 15 sleeping in my room when my mom woke me up after midnight screaming and yelling about my sister not being home. She snuck out of the house to be with her BF. My mom threw me out of her house that night and tossed all my clothes onto the lawn. I was punished for my sister's actions. Yes, my sister is the golden child. Commenter, since you've never gotten any apology, how can you be unforgiving? OOP, I ask myself this question more often than necessary. Since I'm part of a big Catholic family, that word gets hurled in my direction all the time. Commenter, ESH, your sister and niece acted atrociously, and you were right to cut them both out of your family's lives. But why did it take so long? Your son was physically assaulted, and yet for months after you thought he should still spend time with his cousin? Why? Better late than never, but you still shouldn't have been late when it came to protecting your child from a bully. P. I did ask if he wanted to stay there. I never forced him to go. You're not wrong, though, and 5 years later I still haven't forgiven myself for this. Update, same post. December 11th, 2024, next day. I'd like to start by reminding everyone that I am a mom. My time on Reddit is limited. I can pop in for a quick one-line response in the morning, but once my kids are awake, I'm fully in mom mode until they're asleep again. This is why my posts and updates tend to happen late at night. For those claiming this post is fake, think what you want. I'm not wasting my energy convincing you otherwise. My daily life is already exhausting, especially with the added family pressure I'm dealing with. To provide some context, this situation started 5 years ago. My relationship with my mother wasn't great to begin with. After she secretly took my kids to spend time with my sister, I distanced my family from her too. About a week later, my mom reached out to apologize and took steps towards reconciliation. A few months after that, I started allowing her back into our lives, but I set firm boundaries. For instance, she's not allowed to take my kids anywhere without me. For the next year, I avoided large family gatherings to steer clear of my sister. However, 3 years after the incident, we attended a funeral where my sister and her family were present. My youngest, who was only 2 at the time of the original events, didn't even remember them. Today he's curious and might want to get to know them, but Mark has no interest. He'll smile politely in shared spaces, but that's it. Corey remembers hearing "the annoying child," but doesn't realize it was directed at him. Over the years, we've had minimal interaction with my sister's family during shared events, mostly just nods of acknowledgement. Still, no apologies or meaningful attempts to reconcile have ever come from my sister. This year, the pressure from extended family has been relentless, with my brother being the most vocal. He insists I need to squash my feud because family events aren't the same. After last night, I realized getting everyone in a room to address this was impossible, so I sent a message in our family group chat. I explained that while some may not fully grasp the impact of what happened, it was deeply hurtful and damaging to my family. I also asked them to focus on this special time for my sister, while respecting my boundaries and leaving my family out of it. I made it clear that if anyone couldn't respect my boundaries, I would have no choice but to distance myself from them as well. This prompted some quick responses like, "I'm sorry if I ever made you feel that way, and I wasn't trying to pressure you." It's been 5 years of uncomfortable moments, family jabs, and constant pressure for the sake of keeping the peace. It's been draining, but I want to sincerely thank this community for the advice and support you've given me over the last 24 HRs. The renewed energy to stand firm in my decision has meant more than I can express. Before signing off for the night, I'd like to mention that yes, I use AI to help structure my posts and trim unnecessary emotional content. Editor's note. Because I know it will come up due to the last part of OOP's post. OOP's account is over 4 years old, and she has commented about her kids over the years along with her strained relationship with her mom. She also posts, comments on multiple subs, and uses Reddit fairly actively. All of that to say, her story lines up with what she has posted over the years. OOP addressed that in her update because someone accused her of using AI because she used an M dash and a hyphen correctly. Story 5. AITAH for cutting off my sister and telling her she's no longer welcome in my house after threatening to sue me. So I, 26F, have a sister, 31F. Let's call her Jane. Jane is not my bio sister, but we grew up in the same household. For as long as I can remember, Jane has had this victim mentality. Mom died when she was young. Dad was never in the picture, but my mom, her aunt, godmother, took her in. She lived with us for 13 years before she got married and moved to Idaho with her husband. We never had the best relationship growing up, but I assumed it was just sibling rivalry, and we would grow out of it like me and my baby sister, 25F. My mom passed away in 2020, and Jane thought it was only right that she inherit my mom's engagement ring, even after declaring at the funeral that my mom was not her mom, just a woman who helped raise her. I then moved back into my parents' home because I felt bad for my dad and didn't want him to be alone. After converting the top floor of our 3-story home into a mini apartment for myself, Jane raised concerns that there would be no space for her to come home to during Christmases. But we made do. My dad recently paid off the home and signed the deed over to me under the condition that he live there rent-free until he dies, since I had been helping him pay the mortgage and would continue to pay the taxes on the home. I dismantled the apartment on the 3rd floor, making it once again a 5-bedroom home. However, 2 of the bedrooms my sisters used to occupy are now a walk-in closet and a room for my dogs. I added a pool, a new bathroom, renovated the kitchen, and turned the basement into a bar lounge area. Once this was completed, Jane asked me how we would split the sale of the home. I was confused as to what she meant. I was not selling my home. She stated that since my dad paid it off, that when he died, that house would go to all of us and we should just get ahead and sell the property now. I told her I was not selling and that my dad signed it over to me. She then said she would call someone to appraise the home and I would then have to buy her and my little sister out. When I told her again that I owned the home, I was not selling and she wasn't getting any money, she threatened to sue me. I told her to leave. A few weeks later, she called my dad to ask what the plans were for Christmas and if I was going to be staying in a hotel since I could not be cordial. My dad told her I would not be staying in a hotel, but she was still welcome to come and stay with us. I politely informed him that she nor her family were welcome to stay, and if he needed to stay with her over the holidays, he could also stay in a hotel. Now she's called my whole family and gone on a campaign of how evil I am for doing this over the holidays. Most of my family agrees with her except a few who do not want to be involved, saying that she only said she'd sue me out of anger after realizing something else was taken from her. Her mom, her dad, my mom, now her childhood home, which leads me to believe that maybe they are right. Am I being too harsh on her after all her struggles in life, or is she simply just a bitch? Edit. Little sis is fine. Please stop worrying about her. She's not a problem. Hence why I did not list everything she got from our mom or our dad. Update, same post. November 10th, 2024, next day, update. I suggested my dad stay in a hotel with Jane because he was insistent that she spend Christmas with him. I didn't say he couldn't live with me anymore. I don't think it's unreasonable to not want to be around someone who wanted to sue and may still try. I also got the engagement ring. I thought it was crazy that someone declared that's not my mom but wanted her ring that my dad bought. Also, little sis got the wedding bands. Dad also gave Jane significant amounts of money to open her own bakery. Little sis took over his business. I got the home and the retirement, and life insurance will be split in 3 if he passes 'cause he can't die, TBH, OOP's comments. Commenter, presumably she already inherited from both her bio parents, so why would she expect a share from her guardians as well, let alone while one is still alive and living in the home she wants to sell out from under him? She literally intended to turf Dad out of his home so she could profit after he lost his wife. She's a ghoul. OOP. She did not inherit anything from her parents. My dad's side of the family has the money. It's my mom's side she's from. Commenter. Minor error your dad made. It was not ideal for your sister cousin to have no idea that the childhood home was deeded to you. While this is reasonable, given the money you put into it and possibly also the time you've spent care of your aging dad, it would be better that this arrangement was known to all the kids and openly discussed. I can see why she was blindsided. But also horrible behavior your sister-cousin made. She wanted to sell your father's home while he's living in it? That's really appalling. What was your dad supposed to do? Is he very ill and expected not to live long? That wasn't clear from the post. This would be so stressful for him. Why couldn't she let him live and die peacefully in his home? OP. I do think that he told her, and she heard what she wanted to hear. And no, he's actually thriving. He just wanted to retire and not have to worry about bills or the house, so that's why he wanted to live there. He did say if my baby sister has a grandson for him and he would move in with her. I think he just wanted to be stress-free. Commenter, how old is your dad? Does he have an ironclad will that neither Jane or your other sister would be able to contest? Is your name on the deed for the house? OP, he is 60, does have a will, little sis won't do that, and yes, my name is on the deed. OP clarifies. Okay, update clarification. My dad is 60. He's not ill or going to die soon, God forbid. He already signed the house over to me. He just wants to live there so he doesn't have to stress about bills or anything. My sister was under the impression he paid it off and we would sell it, split it in 4. And since I wanted to live there, I would be buying the house from my dad, but he just signed it over to me. Commenter, what's your younger sister think about the home being put in your name? She might have some reason to complain, but if she's okay, you're good as far as I can see. OP, little sister does not care. She know when my dad dies she will get something, and honestly if I ever sold the house I would give her some cash, lol, that's my best friend. To another commenter, my little sister is definitely okay with it. She knows what I have done for my dad since my mom passed. She didn't even want me to pay her if I was going to the home. Just wanted to make sure our dad was not stressed and not alone. More on the house, other siblings. My dad sees it that I put more money into that home than either of them. And if I continue the upkeep and pay the taxes on the home while he does not have to stress, it evens out, and only makes sense for me to have the home. Say he lived 20 more years. I would have been paying for the upkeep and the taxes for 24 years. Why would he not leave it to me regardless? Commenter, do these idiots' other family know she wanted you to sell the house out from under your dad? Where was he supposed to go? Did she want to push him off on an ice floe in the Arctic? OOP. I do think she told them a different story, and her husband also painted me as a bad guy. OOP adds, I will keep y'all updated at what happens during Christmas. We have a family wedding at the beginning of December. I'm sure there will be an update then. Update post. December 16th, 2024, 5 weeks later. The family wedding was over the weekend and everything there was great. No drama. I kept my distance from Jane. The bride was not outstaged at all. Well, not by me and the drama at least. However, Sunday after the wedding, my Aunt Renee called me to ask if I would be coming to dinner to celebrate Christmas early since Jane was in town and would not be coming for the actual holiday. I politely declined, said I would send the children's gift with my dad, but there was no need to go and pretend that I was over Jane's behavior. My aunt then said, I would be upset too if you refused to give me my share, but gave little sis her share. That really shows a divide. I asked her to say that again because I think I hallucinated. Jane really has been out here saying I split the house with my little sister when I did not. I explained to my aunt what actually happened, and then my dad confirmed the information I gave. My aunt was shocked. Not only had Jane lied to her and the whole family, she also lied and said my dad never gave her anything. He gave me the house, my little sister his business, and Jane a lump sum of money to start her bakery since she had no interest in running the family business. Jane is currently staying with Aunt Renee, but Renee is now upset and feels duped into this whole mess. Renee and my dad are both upset with Jane but still believe that I should forgive and forget and move forward. Renee is going to talk to Jane tomorrow before she leaves to go back to Idaho, but I'm not sure it will do anything. Not a great entertaining update, but I guess I felt compelled to finish the story. At this point, though, I don't care if I'm the AH. I was surprised by the amount of comments saying I was, but I don't need any more stress from these people. OOP's comment. Commenter, who TF said you were the AH? Your sister is the only AH here. Protect your dad. OP. I guess because I told my dad that if she wanted to stay in my home, she could get a hotel and he could go with her. Editor's note. Before OOP clarified again in her OG post, people assumed she was kicking her dad out of the house for good. So there were initially quite a few YTA comments. Story 6. AITAH forgoing no contact with my parents after learning they had lied to me about my allergies all my life? Since I was a young child, my parents have completely kept all of them out of our house. While other kids ate breakfast cereals, I ate fish and assorted pickled vegetables for breakfast. While other kids had Lunchables, I had grilled chicken or fish with, again, assorted vegetables, usually sweet potatoes. While other kids ate birthday cake at the birthday party, I had an apple. I never questioned this until a couple of months ago. I was at my aunt's house for my birthday party, and she made brownies for everyone. For me, she took great steps to make them with almond flour and avoided all of my allergies. I started eating them and thought little of it until my aunt suddenly looked at me and, in a panicked way, asked which plate I took the brownies from. I pointed from the one where I got my brownies, and she immediately stood up and told me we had to get my EpiPen. She raced to ask my mother for it, and I sat there scared out of my mind because I had never mistakenly eaten flour before. I noticed my mother had calmed her down, and then she said that we don't have to worry because she had switched the plates of brownies, and after all, I had eaten the ones made with almond flour. I found this incredibly odd because, really, why would she swap the plates? That doesn't even make sense, but for the time being, I let the issue rest. It didn't sit well with me for about a week, and I finally went to get an allergy test. The doctor started with a skin prick test, and lo and behold, I didn't react to any of the above substances. Then he ordered a blood test, and when the results came in, they said that I had absolutely no intolerance to any of the foods I'm supposed to be allergic to. I was furious and called my mother. She eventually admitted that she lied to me because she wanted me to be on a Paleolithic diet and wanted me to be able to avoid all temptations. She raised me with a lie about her own health, but she keeps insisting that I try to see it from her perspective. She spams my phone with messages about how healthy I am, that I never had acne, that I have been in great shape my whole life, that I have strong teeth and bones, and even that I got onto a D1 college tennis team. She has started calling me ungrateful for her intervention and insisting that I really should be glad I never got carb addicted. I don't know what to think. I carried around an EpiPen for all those years, one that I suspect may be fake seeing as my mother never got me to replace it, and I don't even know anymore. Am I the asshole and an ungrateful son for losing it over this? Verdict: OP was voted NTA. Relevant comment. When asked if his parents ever used the EpiPen, gay for daisies, NTA at all. But I gotta know. Did they ever use your EpiPen on you to keep up the lie? I'm kind of figuring yes, since pretty much every kid with a food allergy has to use one at some point since shit happens even when they're careful. Like it's already awful behavior on their part that borders on abusive, if not is abusive outright, but that would be a whole new level of fed up. OOP, not in my recollection. They were always super careful with my diet, going to extremes such as almost never eating out. Other details about his childhood and what happened after he found out the truth. Desert Eagle Bennett, absolutely positively not the asshole. She can't raise her kid on a lie and expect him to be on with it no matter how you turned out. You missed out on sweets as a kid and Lunchables, which are wonderful, and I feel like she lied about switching the plates just to calm her down. She wouldn't have known which plate you were going to eat from. OOP. In her defense, and I know it's weird trying to defend her here, but she went above and beyond in helping me grow up relatively normally. She baked alternative desserts for me, and during my birthday parties as a child would feed the other kids normal cake. I never really felt left out or that I was missing out on anything because I had no metric by which to judge flour. On the other hand, I ate an actual cheeseburger for the first time after learning I had no allergy, and there is no replacement for that. I almost cried over a double bacon cheeseburger. Update: July 11th, 2020. Hey again, everyone. Here is my original post. Perhaps against my better judgment, I decided that I would reopen a line of communication with my mother. I know this was not recommended by anyone in the post at all, but I just decided that I really wanted to have a relationship with her. I wanted her to see why what she did was so incredibly wrong and crossed so many lines on top of wanting to be her son again. I texted her a few days after I made my original post and told her that I was willing to talk if she A, did not say anything until I had my say, B, didn't gaslight me into thinking what she was doing was right, and C, truly considered my perspective. She agreed instantly. We set up a video chat at that point, where I explained many of the wonderful points people in this community brought up in my original post. What if I had really accidentally taken in one of the foods I was supposed to be allergic to? Absurdly irresponsible of her. Did she ever stop to consider that I, sitting there at another kid's birthday party chowing down on a fucking apple while the other kids ate cake, might just feel out of place? Inconsiderate. How could she have the nerve to suggest that my hard work and having a goddamned tennis racket practically glued to my hand since I was 4 was the reason why I'm such a successful athlete? But rather, it was because I didn't eat gluten. Dismissive of my accomplishments. How could she have lied not only to me but to our family as well? Dishonest. Why didn't she just talk to me instead of raising me on a lie? Underhanded. By the end of my rehearsed talk, my mother was straight up ugly crying. This was not exactly what I expected, but she apologized and said that she had been terrible. It was a huge leap from her previous response to my indignation. She told me everything I said was right and asked if I would listen to her reason why she did so. Before I was born, my mother had a much older brother. I knew about him, but never heard specifics on what happened to him. Apparently, he basically ate himself to death. He was so obese and food addicted that he was beyond help. He passed away when my mother was pregnant with me. They were close. It had a huge effect on her. She rationalized that lying would be better for me. When I brought up the fact that she didn't lie once but for my entire life, she acknowledged that she truly had no excuse. This did not give me complete closure, but at least I got it. I am talking to my mother and father again. My father also apologized, although he has tried to maintain that he was more of an accomplice who tried to talk her out of it. That's another fight for another day. Relevant comment. The reason why the dad went along with it. Iluvcats 17. What is your dad's reason for going along with the lie? It seems to me that you and him also need a big talk. OOP. I think he's a product of his time and culture where women ran the house and everything within those walls was left up to my mother. When asked how his food journey has been going, Duckadoo. I'm glad you had a productive conversation with your parents. That was really mature of you. Also, how has it been trying new foods? OOP? Great. Crunch Wrap Supremes from Taco Bell are one of my favorites. Story 7. AITAH for telling my son's stepdad that he's not, he never will be a father to him and starting a screaming fight. Throw away fake names. I, 31M, have split custody of my son, Marcus, 12M, with my ex, Lena, 30F. Lena and I split up shortly after he was born and stayed friends, but have been less communicative since she married Eric, 42M, 4 years ago. We have had disagreements. I don't approve of certain things they've been doing and they think I spoil him, but until recently we managed to keep things civil. Marcus is a great kid and I love him. He's smart, funny, and caring, and he's taught me so much about being a human. Having him saved my life and changed it for the better. He's also more or less my only family, so I really treasure him and our time together. Recently he's gotten chubby and depressed, which I only mention because it's relevant. I was concerned over my son gaining weight, but I didn't want to do much other than making sure we eat healthy. He's still active in sports, which I encourage, and a lot will change with puberty. His mom and stepdad are upset, though, and I now know that they had Marcus on a restricted diet and are putting a lot of pressure on him to lose weight. At first it didn't seem like much, but it became more unreasonable. For example, before this incident, I got in trouble with Eric for buying Marcus a size up in clothes, since he thought that he should trim down to fit his old ones better. I told him that I wasn't going to apologize for giving my son pants. He never responded. Last week, when I came to pick him up, Marcus was still packing his bag. Lena invited me inside for coffee, and we were making small talk when I heard shouting. Apparently, Marcus had been hiding snacks in his room. Eric found candy bars in his overnight bag, which they no longer allow in the house, and pulled them out to show to us as evidence. I got upset when he called Marcus names and told him he wouldn't be fat if he weren't so greedy, and told him to treat my son with respect. Marcus went to the car, and things devolved. I said the thing in the title, called him a bully, and a lot of expletives got thrown around. I didn't hear from Lena until later when she texted to tell me that she was furious with me. I was still reeling from everything, so the conversation is a blur. I tried to tell her I was sorry, but that I couldn't understand why she would allow him to treat Marcus that way. She told me that while was a bit much, Marcus broke their rules, and Eric was right that he should lose weight. She also told me that I don't know anything about the disrespect Marcus gives them, that I only experience the fun parts of being a parent, and accused me of encouraging bad behavior that she has to deal with. I had a talk with Marcus and told him I love him, and he has nothing to be ashamed of. He seems better, but I'm not looking forward to taking him back to his mom's home. I know I made things worse, and I should have removed myself from the situation. But I wouldn't feel right if I didn't at least stand up for my son. AITAH, some of OOP's comments. Custody agreement, OOP. Custody is 50 EOW, every other week, and it's more even now, but my ex has taken him on several times when work or school got out of hand for me, so he's been with her more on average. I owe her for that, and I want to make it up to her, but I need to reflect on and talk to her about the idea that I'm the fun parent and how I can fix that. That being said, it's kind of a secondary concern, RN, considering what's going on with my kid. I didn't think it was that weird and probably underestimated the issue based on my judgment of my child's weight changes being normal, but I should have picked up on other red flags. If this is what's happening in front of me, I fear it's very likely much worse, and just making my home a safe space for my kid isn't enough. What I'm getting from this situation is that I really need to talk to a bunch of professionals. Commenter NTA, your comment about being in trouble with Eric concerned me deeply. You are Marcus's father, not Eric. It is Eric who should be in trouble with you for daring to criticize buying larger clothes for Marcus. I doubt screaming will do any good. Eric sounds like a bully. Suggest you speak with an attorney and put Eric in his place. OP. Honestly, I've been feeling like I live in the Twilight Zone since then. It was so bizarre and insane, I started wondering if I was crazy. Commenter, ESH. Has your ex taken your son to the doctor? Is she following medical advice on weight loss? Did you ask her about any of that? I recommend that you and your ex, and not her husband, sit down in a neutral place when neither of you are angry and discuss what's best for your son. Everyone needs to drop the ego and concentrate on what's best for Marcus. Does he need to modify his diet? Be more active? Is there something going on medically? Figure it out. If he does need to lose weight, then work with a dietitian who works with prepubescent kids. Restricting food to the point that he's hiding it is not healthy. OOP. Don't know if I should have included this in the post, but to the best of my knowledge and based on the conversations I've had with Marcus since, this doesn't seem to be based on any actual medical advice or have entailed any visits to a doctor. From what I've gathered, it's just very broad, drastic restriction of his food intake which is making things worse. That being said, I need to hear more from my son and my ex before I come to any conclusions. This is also wildly out of character for her. I've never seen her be cruel to anyone, especially not our son, and I'm worried for her too. I definitely want to take him to a doctor myself and get some expert advice counseling on several fronts. This is a big wake-up call that I've horribly underestimated how bad things are. I didn't think it was anywhere near enough to justify this kind of action, but regardless of whether there's something physically wrong, like a thyroid problem, this is a deeply unhealthy situation for my child, and I need to make it right. Commenter, a lot of kids, especially boys, will chunk up before they shoot up. Unless a doctor has a concern, it shouldn't be an issue. They should be seeking medical advice before putting a child on a diet. NTA, OOP. I fully agree with this, and I think this is abusive, a huge overreaction to a weight change that could result in a serious vicious spiral, but I really do think I was wrong to handle it the way I did. Standing up for my son is one thing. I needed to shut that down, and to make some serious long-term changes to help him with his living situation. but letting that spiral into an out-of-control fight with another adult who is still very much one of his guardians isn't going to help him. Commenter: I think they all suck because they could put their differences aside and talk about the situation in the best interest of the kid instead of yelling at each other and having two different parenting styles. OP. After reading through this, I definitely fucked up that interaction. Standing up for my kid is one thing, but not removing myself from the situation before it escalated and letting it devolve like that is another, and it doesn't help my son. I'm definitely a lot more upset at his stepdad than I realized, and it's been building for a while. I do think my son's right ahead of a growth spurt, that it's not an abnormal or concerning amount of weight, and that's why I wasn't worried. But I need to talk more to my ex. I care about her, and I very much want to have a discussion with her, but navigating her husband is going to be difficult. It's hard for me not to see his behavior as really cruel and bizarre. Either way, I have a lot of work to do. Do you discipline him at all? OOP. Re-discipline. I honestly don't know what I'd discipline him for. I don't want to be a dad who considers my child above all wrongdoing, and I do want to hold high standards for my kid and teach him the right values. I've been questioning how well I do that after what my ex said, but he's really well behaved with me and makes a point to help care for our home and make my life easier when he's in my custody. So I haven't seen it personally. If he's acting up with his mom or anyone else, I do want to intervene and tell him that it's not okay to be disrespectful. But this is the first time she's complained about him to me, and in light of his stepdad being like this, I can't help but think that if he's acting out with them, it's not actually because of anything wrong with him. Mini update in comments 2 hours later. Hi all. This is a lot of responses very fast, and I thank you for the support, suggestions, and the brutal honesty. I do think I was wrong to escalate the situation and not remove myself sooner. There's a lot of things I need to do as a father, and I value all of your feedback. I do want to respond to something. I've had a few people in the comments tell me that Eric is my son's other dad by virtue of being in that house and married to my ex. But I guess my problem is that I don't think he should be. I would be more than happy to welcome another parental figure in my kid's life. I don't think I have a monopoly on being dad or anything, but as it stands, my child hates and fears him, and I do not think anyone who does that to my child deserves to call themselves his parent. I felt the same way about my bio parents, and I refuse to acknowledge them as my family, so I guess that's where that comment about him not being my son's dad came from. That being said, I know I'm in the wrong for shouting at him out of anger instead of trying to be the adult, and this does nothing to help my son. I also don't want anyone blaming any of this on my son, or suggesting that he's being a dick to his mom and stepdad. He's 12 and children act out of distress when adults treat them poorly or fail them, myself included. He's the only person in this situation who's not at fault. I will keep trying to talk to my ex, get counseling for my son, and seek out legal advice. OOP clarifies. Commenter: if you're in Europe, UK, generally they take children's rights more seriously than in the USA. OP: I am from Europe, but I'm not optimistic. I know it's a different time, but I grew up in a truly terrible home and was failed pretty badly by the system, even being from one of the best countries for children's rights. If I want things to be right for my son, I need to take care of it myself. OP is voted NTA. Update, same post. December 11th, 2024, 2 days later. Update. Thanks again for your responses. I am in touch with social services and filed for emergency custody since I don't see a non-legal way forward. Many pointed out the way my Lena and Eric treat my son would push him towards disordered eating or could be malnutrition. Unfortunately, it seems be some degree of both. I learned more what they let Marcus eat, 900, 1,000 cal day versus recommended 2,500 for active preteens, which pushed him to sneak food. The humiliation is also constant behind closed doors. I fear there's more he's afraid to tell me. He's physically okay, according to pediatrician, but hurt. I'm trying to make sure he knows he has nothing to be ashamed of, and that the person who should be ashamed is the one who did this. Other things in my ex's house. Eric apparently often starts nasty fights with Marcus. He has also said some pretty demeaning, disturbing things about my background, which is unsurprising. His mom gets shouted down when she tries to defend him. She both sides the situation afterwards, holding husband and child equally responsible. Lena reached out to apologize. She said that she knows Eric was wrong and promised to try and talk sense to him. I told her this wasn't enough and asked why she went along with it. She seemed to wake up when I told her that they seriously hurt Marcus and agreed that their behavior was unacceptable, but begged me to let her try and fix it. She seemed really tired and unwell and completely different from my former friend. I asked if she feels safe at home. She wouldn't give me a straight answer, but promised that she's not physically unsafe and will seek help if needed. I feel for her but no longer trust her. I recorded the call just in case. We're in a one-party consent country, and we'll keep gathering evidence. Honestly, I'm scared. I was failed badly by social services courts as a kid, so I don't have faith in them. It's also complicated because Lena and I never married. I'm a legal guardian, but we had Marcus as teens with no support, and there's a complex history. I'm saving details for the lawyer to get advice specific to my situation, but I'm not letting Eric near my son. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter NTA. Something is going on in that house and it isn't good for your son. If he does have an eating disorder, then it could have developed by whatever is happening in that house. FYI. It is never about food. My question is, why did your son not tell you this was happening? More to the point, what other weird stuff is occurring? Eric should not be trying to parent your son. It sounds like he bullies your boy and the child's mother. His call to you about buying your kid pants was a weird dominance flex against you. Basically, Eric has no respect for any of you, and your son is suffering due to it. I wonder why his mother can't see that. What has changed over the last 4 years? OOP. It's a lot uglier than what I've written, honestly. There's so many details and minor escalations over the years that I'm putting together in my head. From what my son has told me, the weight shaming is much worse in that house, like some truly disgusting comments about his body that make what I witnessed look mild by comparison. I understand why he's scared or embarrassed to talk about it. He was already tearing up when he admitted that to me, and it's hard for children to discuss that kind of humiliation. The dominance flex. I've always been aware that Eric looks down on me, though he never said it to my face until our fight. I work a blue-collar job, didn't go to school, and had my kid at 18, and he thinks that this makes him more responsible or fit to parent than I am. There's other elements to it. Until he's called me a lot of things in front of my son and ex, but that's how he saw me from the start, and it's only gone downhill from there. Commenter. I think lots of people would react the same way or more explosively to someone being abusive to their child. I also don't think someone like Eric, a grown man who starves a child, based on your update on Marcus's caloric intake recently, he is actually being starved, and then screams at them and calls them names, is necessarily the kind of person who would be receptive to a calm and rational explanation of why that is inappropriate. OP. Oh yeah, no, if I knew what I know now 5 days ago, my reaction would have been much, much worse. Story 8. AITAH for accepting cake at my friend's birthday party? So this is a bit of a weird one. I, 41M, was at a friend's birthday party on the weekend just past. There were 9 of us at the party, including the birthday boy, which is surprisingly relevant. All fake names from here on out. Amy, 30-ish F, one of the guests, baked a cake for the birthday boy. After the relevant party traditions of singing the birthday song and the hip-hip hooraying that happens after the birthday song here in Australia, I went back to talking to one of my friends when Amy came up to me and the other friend with 2 plates of cake and offered them to my friend and I. We both said yes, thanked her, and then she made a really odd face and walked away. My friend and I both said it was weird and went back to chatting. I ate some of the cake, and it had desiccated coconut inside it, which I don't particularly like, so after a couple of bites, I ignored it and then chucked it out when the party ended about an hour or so later. About 45 minutes ago, Stephen, 30-ish M, Amy's partner, sent me a series of angry texts. 8 a.m. on a Monday morning is really not the best time to receive angry texts, saying how Amy spent last night crying about how she didn't get to eat any of her cake, and that I took a slice of it only to throw it away and deprive her of her own cake, and that she only cut 8 slices since she knows I don't like coconut. But I took her slice and threw it away to spite her. I replied, "Why did she even offer me any cake if she knew there was coconut inside?" Stephen said that she did it to be polite and not leave me out, and that I was an asshole for taking her slice and throwing it away. I forwarded the message to my other friends that were there, and most of them have left me on read so far, except one who responded with a thumbs-down emoji and another who hasn't seen it yet, as of this writing. The fact that no one's responding to me is making me worry that I might have been the asshole here. Some of OOP's comments. Top commenter, NTA. What a bizarre situation. You cut enough cake for everyone there, including yourself, and don't hand cake to people if you're relying on them turning it down so you can eat it yourself. You did the right thing by accepting it. It would have been more rude to decline. She seems weird as she's making this a much bigger issue than it is. OP, I mean, she expected me to decline, so was there just no winning here? Commenter. Info. Did you know that it had coconut in it when she offered it to you? OOP. Nope. It was baked into the cake and she didn't tell me. It just looked like a white chocolate cake with raspberries. To another commenter. Nope. Birthday song. Hip hip hoorays. Conversation with my friend recommending me The Wheel of Time. He's rereading it. I've yet to start. Amy comes up with cake is my timeline. I have texted the others now to see if she announced it before distribution. Commenter. Wait. So Stephen, her partner, ate cake and didn't give her any? And then he messaged you about not liking the cake that was offered to you? Amy and Stephen are perfect for each other, ha 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 ha. NTA. P.S. Coconut is delicious, you're wrong there. OOP. I like most coconut things except desiccated coconut. I really love coconut water and the flesh of young coconut. It's really refreshing. Desiccated coconut just tastes of dust and sadness. Commenter. Does she usually act like this? OOP. I don't know. I've only met her like 3 times. She was Stephen's +1 to our friend's party. Commenter. How did she know you don't like coconut if you've only met her 3 times? OOP. I don't know. I assume Stephen told her? Or maybe it came up in conversation at some point in one of the other events I met her at? I genuinely don't know her that well. Commenter. NTA for the cake thing, that is just weird and a bit over the top. Possibly an AH in forwarding the texts to your friends, though. My guess is that is why they are leaving you on read, not the cake. You have effectively asked your group of friends to pick sides in something that you could have just shrugged off. OP. Fair, I accept that. I was just hit by a bunch of weird angry texts early Monday morning and wasn't sure what to do. Birthday boy. Birthday boy doesn't like cake. His wife made baklava instead and served that. Commenter. Why was the +1 baking the birthday cake? Especially if he doesn't like cake and already had baklava. Amy's weird. OP. Because baklava is not a substitute for birthday cake, according her message to birthday boy's wife prior to the party. The situation's been resolved, but I can't post an update in the sub yet by sub rules, but it's on my profile. Update post, December 16th, 2024, next day. As before, all names are changed. The other guests, all in their 30s, are Dean, birthday boy, Eileen, Dean's wife, Drew, friend I was talking to when the cake was served, Anna, mutual friend, Matt, Anna's +1, Connor, mutual friend. So to the update. The reason I was left on read in most cases is because everyone else except Matt, also received angry texts. Eileen sent the thumbs down emoji and clarified that it was because she was upset about what was said. Everyone's replied now, so I'm summarizing the event. I wasn't the only person to not finish her cake. Dean didn't eat any. Ate Eileen's baklava. Eileen didn't eat any, allergic to raspberries. Drew threw his away. Doesn't like coconut. Anna ate a bit of hers and gave the rest to Matt. Connor didn't eat any, doesn't like white chocolate. Also, Anna cut the cake in 12, and Amy ate a slice. Background. I mentored everyone in the group, except Matt and Amy, when they were in their late teens, early adulthood. They're apparently super protective of me, chronic injuries and poor mental health, and my opinion holds a lot of weight in the group, which I didn't realize. My standoffish attitude towards Amy in previous meetings left her feeling like an outsider still, whereas Matt and I get along well and he's been accepted in the group more than she has. At our second meeting and the party, Amy was constantly interrupting me and changing the subject to try and get a rise out of me. WTF? But my boyfriend has ADHD, so I just assumed she had ADHD too. The texts to the others were her claiming I was manipulating people into disliking her, calling me a FGT, and claiming I groomed a group of impressionable late teens, young adults, etc., which she sent using Stephen's Facebook on his computer at home. Stephen * did not * send the angry messages. Stephen and I met for lunch, arranged via Discord. Amy asked him after the party why I threw my slice of cake away, and he told her * then * that I didn't like coconut. She didn't know prior. She then claimed that the reason everyone else didn't finish her cake was because I was instigating a bullying campaign against her. Stephen said that no one in the group was petty enough to do that. Dean called him at work asking him to explain the texts, and he had no clue what was happening. He has non-call notifications turned off. Stephen's going to talk to Amy when he gets home tonight. I don't know if they're going to break up. That's their business. But she's no longer welcome at the group going forward. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter: I'm glad you have such a tight group of friends that are willing to stick up with you. I just came across your original post and she is so weird. Just a jealous homophobe. I hope your friend gets a better girlfriend next time. I'm hoping you don't have to cut him off since he had no idea about any of this. OP: Thankfully not. He was mortified at all the screenshots from others and the texts I got too. He paid for my lunch as well. Commenter: Wow. I get being insecure and worrying that your partner's friends don't like you, but her behavior was wild. Did she think it wouldn't get back to Stephen that those messages came from his phone? I honestly hope they break up, more because of how awful her accusations about you were than anything else. Accusing you of grooming children plus the homophobic slur, all because you didn't eat a piece of cake. That's a dangerous person. Big red flag. OOP. I don't think it's the cake as much as it is the lack of tacit approval, because she still felt like an outsider in the group, despite being with Stephen longer than Matt's been with Anna, and he got accepted pretty much straight away just because I openly get along with him. I didn't know until today that my opinion mattered this much to my friends. Ages, mentoring. In the post above, I state they're all in their 30s, but we're all, except Matt, neurospicy folks, thus the mentoring I did when they were teens. Commenter: Please update us when she inevitably loses her ever-loving mind, because she will. OOP. I don't think there's going to be much to update anyway. Either Stephen breaks up with her or they work something out, but her involvement with the group as a whole is pretty much done, I think, regardless of the outcome. To another commenter: Yeah, it has to be hard for him. I hope he's found a way to resolve his situation in the best way for him, Stephen. But that's his story to tell, not mine, so I'll probably not update about that topic. Commenter: Holy crocodile, as they probably don't say in Australia. That is some extreme stuff. I get that feeling / being left out is pretty painful, but this is next level. May I ask why you were standoffish towards her previously? Not blaming or anything, just curious. OOP. So me and most of my friends are neurodivergent. I'm sensitive to a lot of noise. That's why it's a small party, not a larger one. Amy is loud and talkative. It's just overwhelming, and I didn't have my loops with me when we first met. The second time onwards, she kept interrupting me and changing subjects while I talked, and I already deal with that with my ADHD partner, so I cope. But it doesn't lend itself well to ongoing conversation, and I can't do what I do with my partner, which is, I love you and I would like to finish my sentence, please, when he's willing to listen, whereas she was doing it on purpose. Commenter: Now my tough question. Feel free to downvote and / or block me. Could you feel enough empathy to approach her for a talk? I'm not defending her in any way, but I know some people will go far due to the pain of rejection, real or imagined. OP, nah, I'm not approaching her. If she wants to talk, she has to make the first move, especially after the homophobic slurs she slung in the texts to the others. I'm probably willing to forgive and forget that if she makes the effort, but Dean, Eileen, Drew, and Anna are all bi as well, and I know they're also pissed off about that. Just because 3 of them are in outwardly heteronormative relationships doesn't mean they aren't part of the LGBTQ+ club, so she really overstepped. Editor's note, marked as concluded because OOP indicated he wouldn't update about the relationship status. Story 9. AITAH, for breaking up marriage plan due to his plans of making me housewife and a bangmaid. I am 29F who has done well in life and is earning a 6-figure salary. I own my home. I am a head nurse and working at reputable Govt hospital. I have had a couple of boyfriends, but we couldn't marry due to some circumstances that were out of control. One moved out of country, another one's mom didn't like me and the community I belong to. We broke up because we didn't want long-term fights and we didn't see a nice future. He was love of my life. Finally, I agreed to arrange marriage setup now, and matched a guy. We have had year of courtship and fell in love. So marriage was next year. Now this guy is super rich in his family, and him started saying I don't need to work, and he will give me as much as money to spend. He wants me to handle household. Note we have multi-generational family homes, so his parents would have lived with us too. I told him it isn't possible for me. I worked hard to reach this level in career. I told him I don't want to be his bed warmer and housemaid. I have immense respect for housewives, but I don't want to be one. His parents started being passive-aggressive. I ignored. Finally, a few days back, we had huge argument during weekend lunch at his house. His mom said today's girls are so tough and don't value family values. I disagreed. I value family a lot, but that doesn't mean I want to be like previous gen women who sacrificed everything to be seen goddesses in society. I have seen my mom sacrificing so much, which I don't want to. I left, and after thinking for days, I told my parents this won't work. They were shocked and sad because it would cause a loss on reputation of family. But I stopped eating, and they agreed after seeing my condition. We broke up, and his family is mad. That how a girl from my background can reject a rich guy like their son. They tried to ruin my reputation. I made a public post on Insta and Facebook with screenshot of chat where I was being pressured to leave job, and now I have full support. Now they are calling me and my parents and threatening us, etc. I don't care. At this point, if a man has to come, he will. If he doesn't, I will adopt a kid in future. But I don't want to be someone's doormat. With this job, I have gifted myself and my family foreign vacations, decent cars. I don't want to be on mercy of some man. My only regret is that he could have told me from day one but made me fall for him and wasted a year. He said he found me attractive and so he went for me. I feel weird. AITAH for breaking his heart and ruining his reputation? Edit to add. Some relatives are saying I am leaving a millionaire. I don't want to be stuck in golden cage. Relevant comment. Usual Canary 7764. You sound pretty independent enough, and plenty of men respect that. If he wants a version you cannot provide, I am not sure what he is mad at. Incompatibility is real. You guys were incompatible. You will find your person. NTAOP. OOP. He wasted a year of my life and made me fall for him. At least he could have been clear from day one. He said he found me attractive and couldn't tell. Lame reason. Strong_arm 8734. NTA, and more women should have your good sense. OP. Some relatives are saying I am leaving a millionaire. I don't want to be stuck in golden cage. Update. December 12th, 2024. Well, things took a U-turn. The day I made thread, he tried suicide. He did send me message that he loves me. And his family pressure was the reason he wanted me to stay home. His mom-dad didn't like women working in family. He said he never told it during courtship because he has fallen for me and didn't want to loose me. I told him it's okay and I blocked him. Then later he tried to commit suicide by hanging, but his parents caught him. It became a mess. He survived, but he only wanted me in hospital. I couldn't be this cruel. Spend whole day and night. And we have had our heart-to-heart. His suicide attempt made me realize that how much I love him. He has decided to stay separate from his family and don't mind me working either. So we are not marrying with a grand celebration. We will do simple court marriage next month and shift to our abode, the house I own. We'll throw a reception with people we want. He will be discharged in few days and shift at my home. His parents are apologizing to him and me. But I don't want to deal with them. My parents and siblings don't want it, but I told them I want this. They said do whatever you feel like, but don't cry later. I told them it is my cross to wear. I guess we are meant to be together. I hope I give him more news in month after our marriage, and hopefully everything goes well. Story 10. AITAH for calling the police on my sister? I, 34, F single mother of 3 girls, 13, 8, 2, let my sister, 31F, move in with me 2 months ago and she stole from me. I am shaking as I type this up. Let call my sister Sarah. Sarah lost her job about 4 months, got kicked out of her apartment about 2 months ago, and didn't have anywhere to go. Being her big sister, I offered her a place to stay while she figured things out. Being a single mother with no one to turn to, sometimes I felt sorry for her. So I figured I could help her out in this rough patch. I even started helping with daycare fees for her son, who's 3, because I know how tough it can be to make ends meet. Things started out okay, but I started noticing small red flags. First, Sarah's boyfriend, who I'd only met 3 times, began coming over almost every day while I was at work. I didn't love it, but I thought they both needed support, so I let it slide. I did let Sarah know that I didn't want him coming to my house every day, and he stopped coming for a while. Then one day he just pops back up. It wasn't long before I noticed other strange things happening. At first I thought I was tripping, like little stuff would be moved in my bedroom or my bathroom would have stuff missing. At first I thought it was my daughter's, but the stuff that was touched or missing they either don't use or have their own. So without telling anyone, I put a camera in my room. I saw Sarah going into my room when I was at work. I confronted her and told her, without letting her know about the camera in my room. I told her I knew she was going in my room, and if she does it again, she was out. She half-assed apologized, and we moved on. Well, yesterday when I get home, I noticed my closet door slightly opened. I knew something was off because I never leave my closet door open. As I was looking through my closet, I noticed one of my handbags was missing. I had been saving up about $2,500 for Christmas gifts for my kids in the handbag. It wasn't in an obvious spot either. You would literally have to dig under about 7 other handbags to get to that one. My heart was in my ass because 1, my money is missing, and 2, that is the money for my kids' Christmas, and 3, my sister was nowhere to be found. I knew right then and there Sarah took it. I immediately called Sarah, but she wouldn't answer. I checked security cameras in my room and saw Sarah thieving ass in my room going through my closet. About 5 minutes later, her boyfriend, let's call him Ryan, came in my room too. They had to have picked the lock because I made sure my room was locked before I went to work this morning. They spent 45 minutes in my room going through all my stuff trying to put it back like it was. I was devastated. I let her move in with my rent-free and bill-free, and is how she repays me. About 2 hours after I got home, Sarah and Ryan shows back up. I confronted her immediately. At first, she flat out lied and denied it, claiming I was mistaken or that I had misplaced the money. But I didn't back down. I told her I had the entire thing on camera, everything, including her and her boyfriend going through my things. She was caught red-handed. I told her she had until the end of the day to return the money or I'd be pressing charges. She started freaking out, saying I was being unreasonable. I really wanted to put my hands on her, but I have too much to lose. She even tried to drag our dad and her mom into the situation, calling them to intervene on her behalf. But I wasn't having it. I told them both to stay out of it, that I was handling it my way, and they had no right to defend her when she was clearly in the wrong. And if they want to defend her, they can give me the $2,500 back. That shut them right on up. I also told they didn't have the right to say anything to me about this because they were willing to tell her and their grandchild sleep outside because they not ready to have a toddler around they right now. By 8 p.m., she still hadn't given me the money back, and I had no choice but to call the police. I filed a report and gave them the footage. By the time the police got there, Sarah and Ryan had jumped in his car and left. They're both on the run now, and no one knows where they are. I'm sure she's trying to hide, but I have no idea if they'll even come back or if I'll get my money back. I'm still in shock. I've always tried to help her, and this is how she repays me. I can never trust her again, and right now I don't even know if I want her in my life anymore. It's one thing to make mistakes, but to steal from family when I've been helping you, it feels like a betrayal on a whole new level. So here I am, dealing with the aftermath. And I'm wondering, should I have handled this differently? I really wanted to hurt her, and the only reason I didn't was because of my daughters. Even though they are not with me, I still don't want to miss up there in my future. I got a call from one of my cousins, and she was telling me that she was on me side, but she also told me that my dad and his wife called her mom trying to talk junk about me, and my auntie shut us down. She apparently told my dad that him and his wife created the Mr. My sister is because they never said no and gave her any and everything she wanted. I love my aunt for sticking up for me. I'm just trying to process everything, and honestly, I'm struggling to figure out what comes next. So Reddit AITAH for calling the police on my sister? AITAH has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA. Relevant. Top comments. Commenter 1. NTA. Please, for your and your children's safety, change all the locks in your home immediately. Also, I would post an update to all family and extended family so that they don't shield these too. OOP, thank you. My best friend came by that night and changed my locks for me. Majority of my family knows now, and they said if they see them, they are going to call the police. Commenter 2. NTA. They will catch your sister and her BF. Sooner or later, just please don't drop the charges when they do. Commenter 3. When people get kicked out of their previous living situation, that is almost always a reason not to invite them in, as your situation shows. Doesn't matter if it's a stranger or your twin sister. You, however, are very much NTA for calling the cops on them. Never let her anywhere near you again. Also, I don't like that she has a BF that can come waltzing into your house. You have kids. The BF is clearly no good either. Don't have people move into your house again that might let shady males in, especially when you have kids. Sorry this happened to you. Don't back down when it comes to the police. Good for you having it on camera. Update, December 15th, 2024. Hey everyone. First off, I would like to thank everyone for the kind words and support. It really means a lot to me. So again, thank you. To the people saying it is my fault, you can go to hell. That just shows me that you will steal from anyone at any time if given the opportunity. So for the update. Bear with me. I worked my overnight last night and barely got any rest today because of this situation. So when I got off work this morning, I really didn't feel like going upstairs to my room, so I laid on the couch. Around 10:30, I heard someone at my front door. When I opened the door, it was Sister looking stupid. When I realized who it was, I punched her right in the face. She tired to run, but I grabbed her and pulled her inside of my house. She was alone. I asked her where was my nephew, and she tells me that he is with her childhood best friend. I will call her Alex. I didn't believe her, so I made her call Alex so I could see, and he was. Thank God he is with Alex because Alex is an angel. I asked my sister where my money was, and she said gone. I said, I know that, but where did it go? This idiot looked me in my eyes and told me that she and Ryan spend the money DoorDash, going out to eat, and Mary Jane. I just stood there and looked at her. She didn't say anything, and I know she thought I was going to punch her again because every time I moved, she would flinch. After what felt like hours of me staring at her, I called her a dumb bitch. I told her she needed to explain herself. What pisses me off is she wasn't even looking for the money. She was looking for my handgun. She told me that Ryan had convinced her to go to her old job and get revenge for firing her. I told her she was a dummy for going along with that play. I then asked her why did she get fired, because she told us her job had to lay off people due to the drop in business. It is a small business and a local family-owned grocery store. Well, come to find out, her and 4 other employees decided that they didn't want the 15% employee discount they were getting and the $19.50 they were getting paid. They wanted free merchandise and free money for the registers. My jaw hit the floor. Her old employer told her if she paid back the money she took, he would press charges. I asked her how much she took, and it was about $690, but I think it was way more. Ryan didn't like the idea of her getting ripped off and came up with his plan. She knew I had a handgun. She didn't know that I take it with me everywhere I go because I have my concealed carry license. While she is taking to me, I'm recording the whole time. She then tells me the reason she got kicked out was because she told her landlord that if he didn't let Ryan stay with her and not be on the lease, she was going to get a bunch of people to bet him up. The landlord filed a police report and had her evicted 10 days after. But what really pissed me off is she told me the whole time she was on the run, she never once checked up on her son. She said Ryan doesn't want him around, so that is why she took him to Alex. At that point, I snapped. Everything from her stealing from me to her abandoning her son just came out. I have never yelled and cursed at no one like that before. I really let her have it. She started crying, but I couldn't care less. She tried to talk, but I told her to shut the fuck up because I was done with her shit. I told her she was a piss-poor excuse for a human being and a mother. I told her that she should be ashamed of herself for what she did to me and how she is treating her son. I told her that I was going to help Alex get custody of her son because she didn't deserve him. She tried to talk, but I wasn't done. I also told her that she is going to jail and Ryan is too. She really started crying, but again I couldn't care less. I was yelling so loud I think the neighbors heard me and called the police, which I was going to do anyway. So, thank you to my neighbors. When I opened the door and seen it was the police, they asked me, was everybody and everything okay, because they could hear me from the street and my neighbors were concerned. I told them no and explained everything that was going on. Sarah was just sitting there like a deer in headlights and trying to play victim. She told the police that I gave her the money. I wanted to jump on her right then and there. I told the police that the previous officers had the footage of her and Ryan going through my stuff. One of the officers ran her name and seen she had a warrant for her arrest and put her in handcuffs. They took Sarah outside and was searching her. The police pulled some money out her pocket and she told them to give it to me. This stupid bitch wanted them to give me $24.76. Yes, I counted it. I told them to keep it because she is going to need it. The police asked her how did she get there, and Sarah said Ryan dropped her off. They asked her where was Ryan, and she said, around the corner waiting on her. When one of the officers went to check, the dummy was still there sleeping, so he went to jail also. I called my dad and told him what was going on, and to my surprise he must have had a change of heart. He told me after my aunt read him the riot act, he took everything in and realized we were right. He told me that she is going to have to pay for what she did. I also told him about my nephew, but he knew that he was with Alex and glad he was with her. I told him about helping Alex get custody of my nephew, and he told me to do what I had to do. The reason I want Alex to get custody is because she is great with my nephew. She loves him and he loves her. He also is happier when he is with Alex. Even when she would visit Sarah, my nephew wouldn't leave Alex's side. She also, if anything ever happened to my sister, she would take my nephew with no problems. Sarah's mom is pissed at me because I will not drop the charges, and I gave the police the recording of her telling me the plan she really had because it added more charges. I told her if she was good mother and raised Sarah right, we would be going through this. She called me a bitch and hung up. I blocked her. She can deal with Sarah and pay for lawyers. I will make sure I'm at every court date for Sarah and Ryan if possible. I don't want neither one of them getting out any time soon. Well, this is my update so far, and if anything else happens, I will let y'all know. Thank y'all again for the support and kind words. Relevant top comments. Will OOP's children have a Christmas? OP. My family, such as my mom, aunt, other siblings, and surprisingly my dad, has helped me out tremendously. I also picked up as many hours as I can before I get paid again. Commenter 1. NTA. I can't believe she thought she could get away with all that. OP did the right thing by calling the cops and getting her and Ryan out of his life. His nephew deserves better. Commenter 2. Yikes, what a roller coaster. Seriously, NTA. You've managed to juggle everything from family drama to police drama like a pro. It's wild that Sarah tried playing the victim after all that chaos. Good on you for sticking to your guns and protecting your nephew. Sending you all the support for those court dates. You're going to need a gallon of coffee and the patience of a saint. Story 11. AITAH for immediately donating the gifts my stepmother bought for my children. I, 34F, have no contact with my stepmother, Mary. Long story not worth explaining. Edit, I loosely explained in a comment. It's been 5 years since I cut her off from my and my family's lives. As such, she hasn't seen my son, 8M, since he was 3 years old, and she's never met my daughter, 4F. Throughout the years, she has attempted to contact me and my kids several times. My father used to help her sometimes. He'd tell me how awful she felt, how much she wanted to meet my daughter, and that the kids needed their grandma. I've never considered her a grandparent, as both my mother and mother-in-law are active in their lives. Several fights later, my father apologized and stopped assisting her, but Mary still tries to get in touch with me every now and then. I always state I have no interest in seeing her or allowing her to be a part of my children's lives. My son's birthday was in September. The day of neither of my kids were home, a large box was delivered to our building. I opened it to find more than a dozen new toys for my children, along with a note that read, "Grandma Mary loves you both." As I later found out, she had bought the toys on a recent trip to the U.S. I couldn't think of that as anything besides a manipulation tactic. My children are barely aware that she exists. Why would she send them both a box full of toys on my son's birthday? I also think she planned the delivery for a time she thought the kids would be home so that they'd see the toys immediately. Either way, my husband and I decided not to keep any of the toys. We donated them all throughout October. The kids never saw any of them. Last week, my father called me. He said Mary had just told him about the toys and wanted to know whether the kids liked them. I told him the truth, and we had an argument. My father called me cruel and ungrateful for what I did. He said he understands Mary and I don't get along, but she still cared enough to spend hundreds of dollars on a loving gesture for my children, and the least I could have done was let them know about it. I honestly couldn't imagine keeping those toys, but I'd be lying if I said the amount of money spent on them didn't make me feel guilty. AITAH. AITAH has no consensus bot. OP was NTA. Additional information from OOP regarding Mary's behaviors. OP to name a few things she did. Mary tried to convince my father to make me stop eating dinner so that I'd lose weight. She made several detrimental comments about my body while I was going through puberty. Whenever me or my sister got sick, she'd claim we were faking it. Neither of us ever faked an illness. I once got sick while home alone with her, and it took me throwing up 3 times before she agreed to call my father. On one occasion, my sister got sick, and she pretended to get sicker. Whenever my sister and I failed to accomplish something, she'd insult our intelligence. Whenever we succeeded, we had gotten lucky. We weren't allowed to say anything even remotely negative about Mary, or she'd have a breakdown. I once said she looked more like one movie character than another, and she started crying. I was 12, and this was the same woman who implied I was fat on an almost daily basis. I don't like talking about this, though therapy has been helping, which is why I didn't give examples originally. Relevant. Comment? OP provides more details on why Mary did not deserve a second chance of having a relationship with her. OOP. The long story is essentially my entire childhood. Having had her in my life when I was a child, I don't think Mary should be around any children, period. She was horrible to me when I was young because I refused to pretend she was my mother. I've been in therapy for years, and it's still hard to talk about how she treated me. I feel like allowing her to be a part of my adult life at all was already giving her a second chance. I cut her off for good when she threw a tantrum because I hadn't taught my son to call her grandma. His wife treated me like crap for almost 15 years, and I never cut him off. It wasn't a gesture of goodwill, it was an attempt to gain access to my children, and I didn't throw it back in their face. If my father hadn't asked, I probably wouldn't have said anything. Commenter 1. NTA, NTA, NTA. Mary knew exactly what she was doing as she's been doing this stuff for at least 5 years. What you decided to do with the toys a stranger attempted to give your children was donate them back to people in need. Some might throw them away, but you put the toys to good use. It might be time to go LC with your dad if he can't respect your boundaries as well, NC with your stepmom. Tell your father if her behavior does not stop immediately, then you'll have to reconsider how much contact you'll have with him. Keep protecting your children! OOP. I used to be LC with my father. When I cut contact with Mary, she spent a few months trying to use him as a messenger. He's since agreed to stop, and our relationship has been improving, but I do intend to proceed with caution if we can't sort this out. She's also had her mother call me to tell me off 3 times and her brother once. I've blocked them both. Can OOP get a restraining order or something similar to keep Mary away from her and her family? OOP. Not easy to obtain in my country. I also don't think it's necessary. Her family lives in a different state, and Mary hasn't been near me in 5 years. Can OOP return the toys back to Mary? OOP. None of us live in the U.S., where Mary bought the toys, so returning them would be more trouble than it's worth. We donated the toys to different institutions and charities around our country. Update, November 18th, 2024, 1 week later. Here's my first post. Hey guys, thank you for your input. Many of you stated you wouldn't be able to make any judgment without knowing why I have no contact with Mary. I think that's completely fair. I explained it better in the comments, and I recommend reading them. But Mary was awful to me when I was young. I loathe talking about it, though therapy has been helping with that. But it stemmed from the fact that I wouldn't allow her to be a second mother to me. I went into low contact with her in my early 20s, and she'd still treat me like crap whenever I saw her. When my son was born, Mary begged me to give her a second chance. She apologized for upsetting me and promised she had changed. I warned her that if she ever overstepped or even remotely hinted at going back to her old ways, she'd never see me or my family again. To be honest, I'm surprised she lasted 3 years. I didn't clarify that in my original post because not only is this something I have trouble talking about, but I also didn't think it was relevant. I was asking about the donations, not whether I was justified in cutting ties with Mary. But I do agree that it's best to have the complete picture before making judgment calls, so I apologize for withholding that. Another thing I didn't mention is that Mary never had children of her own, and my only sister is child-free. My kids are the only grandchildren in the family, which I think is why Mary wants to see them so badly. Anyway, I went through your comments and organized a list of things I wanted to say to my father. I thought about making one for Mary as well, but I doubt she'd actually listen to it. I spoke to my father on Saturday. He said he talked with his wife. Apparently, Mary bought the gifts because it broke her heart to be unable to watch my kids grow up, and she hoped the toys would at least let them know how much she loved them. My father also said that Mary told him about the gifts. He's insistent he had no idea, because it had been a while, and me and the kids hadn't thanked her yet. My husband and I have our children say thank you through voice messages whenever they get a gift from someone who isn't nearby. We've done that for my father before, so I think that's what Mary was expecting. I explained that it didn't matter how thoughtful he thought Mary's gesture was. When I cut ties with her, I cut her off completely. That means no gifts, no phone calls, and no contact with my children, directly or not. She can claim to love them all she wants, but she will never have any involvement in their lives. We had another argument, but I put my foot down. I told my father that if he ever attempts to assist her in any way, or brings up Grandma Mary to my children, he will never see me again. I'll allow him to be a part of his grandkids' lives, but he needs to accept that his wife won't be. Ultimately, my father agreed, but I intend to watch him closely from now on. I don't want to cut contact with him, but this will be his final chance. If he screws this up, he's done. While I'm not 100% confident this will last, I'm still happy with this outcome. I've been going through a fairly stressful time at work, and it feels great to have this weight off my shoulders now. More importantly, I feel like I'm well equipped to deal with whatever comes next. I don't intend to write any further updates. Once again, thank you. Relevant. Comment. Why won't OOP keep the toys? OOP. Keeping the gifts didn't feel right for a number of reasons. Pretty much anything that comes from Mary feels tainted to me, no matter the purpose. Plus, I don't really want to spite her. I don't care about her feelings enough to offend them. Will OOP let her kids have a relationship with Mary in the future when they are older? OOP. When my kids are a bit older, I'll explain who Mary is, what she did, and why we don't talk to her. If they want to pursue a relationship with her afterwards, that will be their choice. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, but I'll respect their decision as long as they respect mine. I don't think it will happen, though. Mary is not a pleasant person. Most of my family members dislike her as well, so unless she drastically improves, I don't think my children would enjoy her company. Does OOP's area country have any kind of legal rights for visitations or grandparent rights? OOP. Not really a concern in my country. New update. Update 2. December 16th, 2024. I really didn't think I'd update again, but I figured I'd let you know that Mary sent us another box. This time, my father warned me. Last week he sent me a text that read, "Mary is sending Christmas gifts for the kids. I promise I just found out." I was at work, and sure enough, the box was there when I got home. My husband and I managed to take it to our bedroom before our children saw it. The box was smaller than the previous one, and we counted 10 toys with Christmas wrapping inside. 6 for my daughter, 4 for my son. There was also another note which read pretty much the same as the last one, with an added, "I'm sorry you didn't get my other gifts." I decided to text Mary this time. I unblocked her and wrote the following. "Anything you try to give me or my children will be donated immediately. Please stop attempting to contact us. You will never be allowed near my family." I then blocked her again. This was my first time unblocking or even contacting her in 5 years. The next day, I spoke to my father. He said Mary didn't tell him she was sending me the box until after doing so. He'd been out of town for a week at that point, and she hadn't said anything about buying my kids more presents before he left. She let it slip to him over the phone and then begged him not to tell me. Apparently, Mary was distraught at my text. That's all I know about how she's reacting to this. My father is doing his Christmas shopping right now, and there are a number of reasons why I don't think he was involved in this. Still, I don't feel like I can trust him right now. I told him he will see me and my family less often than usual for the next few months. We'll see each other on Christmas Eve, party at my cousin's, Mary was banned years ago, and then in February for my aunt's birthday, weekend trip, Mary's not coming. Besides that, I intend to remain in low contact with him for a while. I don't intend to keep that up forever, but I want to be able to trust him again. My father said he understood. I know a lot of you wanted me to cut my father off. I'm not sure I can explain why, but I don't want to do that. Even if I did, I'm not ready to. It might happen in the future, and I'm well aware it should be happening now, but I do think we still have a shot at making this work. This entire week was crap. The first time Mary sent us the gifts, I was just confused. This time I was very upset. I cried when I read her note. I am feeling much better now, though. My husband and I donated the new toys over the weekend, and getting rid of them felt great. I am very glad we managed to protect our children from this. Also, let me add one final time. I came to AITAH to ask whether I was wrong for donating the gifts, not for cutting ties with Mary. So if anyone else intends to tell me I should allow her in my kids' lives, don't bother. I will not budge on this. I don't think I have anything else to add. Thank you all and happy holidays. Relevant comment. Commenter 1, NTA. The notes are what are doing it for me. The whole thing is boundary stomping, but the notes to the kids are just passive-aggressive manipulation. OOP. The way they're phrased almost reminds me of the way she'd sometimes talk to me when I was a kid. I think that's why I cried when I read the second one. Does the rest of OOP's extended family have a relationship with Mary? Her father is losing the relationships with the rest of the family. OP. Yeah, I don't understand it either. Most of my family dislikes Mary. They cut ties with her around the same time I did. My sister is low contact with her. Commenter 2. Honestly, I think the best thing to do is to give these gifts to kids who have nothing. The only thing I'm wondering is your stepmom doing this as a way to feel like a grandmother, to try to hurt you, to get forgiveness from the family, or a combination of all of these, like did she hurt anyone in the family besides you? OOP. I think it's mostly to gain access to my children. She wasn't able to have kids of her own, and mine are the only grandchildren in the family. I don't think she cares about being forgiven. Mary was emotionally abusive to both me and my sister. It didn't get physical, save for a few occasions she knowingly put us both in dangerous situations, so I didn't think it was bad enough that I should tell my mom about it at the time. My sister was younger, so Mary didn't treat her as bad, but she still kept trying to force a mother-daughter bond between them that never really worked. Most of my paternal family went no contact with Mary around the same time I did, Some of them were present when I cut her off, but they never really liked her. Mary isn't a pleasant person for a number of reasons. Even when she was allowed near my son, she was insufferable. She was very jealous of my mom's role in his life, and to a lesser extent my mother-in-law's, kept asking me to let him sleep over at her and my father's place, and complained about everything I dressed him in. OOP's plan to speak with her kids about Mary when they are older and ask about the extended family members. OOP. I intend to talk to my kids about her sometime soon. My daughter isn't old enough to understand everything, but I think I can at least grasp that they shouldn't be near her. I'll keep waiting for the right moment for now, but that conversation is definitely happening in the near future. I'm also paranoid, but the chances of a surprise visit from Mary are very low. She can't show up at their school. Only me and my husband are allowed to pick them up, and she wouldn't be let in otherwise. We also live in an apartment building, not a house, and she can't come inside without the doorman letting her. And it's not that I don't think I could lose my father sooner than later. I just genuinely never really thought about how I'd handle funeral stuff.